Greetings, beloveds. Welcome. Come on in. Welcome, 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 soul family. My Krystic family, welcome to this transmission. I am so excited to have this conversation today. If you read the title, we are going to talk about the evolution of humanity. And we're going to start from the root races to the 5 leading races that are on the planet right now. And when I say leading, I don't mean that in a hierarchical way, okay? We are going to explore this powerful deep dive into our hidden origins. We're going to explore the full evolution from the root races. We're going to talk about the galactic origins of these root races and how they transformed into the 5 primary races on Earth right now. We're also going to uncover why these lineages on Earth right now have been targeted, distorted, and suppressed throughout history, all 5 races. And last but not least, we are going to talk about how to reclaim our Krystic DNA. Now, before we begin, let us call in Krystic guardian frequencies to protect this space and to ensure only eternal source aligned energies are present here. KAH-Rah Sha-Na, E-LAi-sah, KAH-Rah-TEE, Krys. We now enter Krystic alignment and guardian host protection. Asa. So, before we begin, I want to make this Krystic clear. This information is not about superiority. It's not about separation or racial division. Because the majority of us on this planet are mixed with multiple lineages. This is not about skin color. It's about understanding our true galactic origin. The distortions placed upon our DNA and how we must come together to heal them. The unity consciousness that is coming through the field and it gets distorted by these Metatronic overlays, so it takes on all these different meanings. I'm going to put some puzzle pieces together for you today. And by the end of this transmission, I trust that you will get into alignment. This is one of the most powerfulest tools I've ever uncovered for myself. It is what I highly attribute to activating my strands of DNA and doing so much of the work that I have done personally to get me to where I am. Okay? Because myself, I'm Jamaican. I was born in Jamaica. For those of you who don't know, I was born in Jamaica. I've been a citizen since I was 14. Don't call ICE. I was born in Jamaica. My great-grandfather on my mother's side, so my mother's grandfather was Scottish. My father's father and his family were Native American or native to the Americas. They were Arawak, Taino, Aboriginal. They were also Ghanaian, African, and English. So my bloodline, like many of yours, carries multiple codes from different guardian races, because that's how we need to start looking at it. And by the end of this, you are going to know that, beloved. The question that I asked, and the question that you must ask, is why has there been such a strategic race baiting and separation manipulation on this planet? Who does it serve? Why have certain lineages been targeted and others elevated at different time periods? We need to know the whole truth so that we can finally break free together. So let's start off with the 5 root races. And we're going to go all the way back to the galactic seedings and the evolution. Because the 5 root races were not randomly created. They were seeded with intention. Each race carried a specific genetic template, and they also had a planetary role designed to advance the collective evolution of human consciousness. These 5 root races spanned across multiple planetary and dimensional systems, and each of them held codes, gene codes, key code activations for our ascension mechanics. So I'm going to go through the root races first and explore how they evolved into the 5 earth primary races today. The first seeders, the first root race, was the Polarians. Now, they were ethereal. Their dimensional origins were mostly in the etheric. They were non-physical. So they would be 1D, 2D earth template, right? Because we're talking about how it's seeded here. Started out in the galactics and ended here. These were from the Emerald Order, the Elohai Elohim. They were non-physical energy beings, so they acted as the planetary architects. They were non-verbal, so they communicated through harmonic frequency. They were the divine template holders. They laid the plasmic foundation for Earth's energy grids. They were pure plasma beings, plasmic consciousness. So when I say they were the foundation of Earth, it doesn't mean that they were from the first and second dimension. That's where they laid the template. These are plasmic beings, so they are what we would consider ascended masters. They are these beings that exist 13 to 15th dimension. They even exist before the dimensions, before form. They started stepping down. So they were the original seeding. The reason why they maintained that organic source flow intelligence is so that they could keep the harmonics in resonance. So they were the original blueprint which all other root races would be built. The Polarians, okay? The next root race that came directly after them now were the Hyperboreans. These were the grid masters. Their origins were for the 2nd to 4th dimension. They laid the earth template for those dimensional bandwidths. They were connected to the Lyran-Sirian councils and, of course, the Emerald Order. Their purpose was to expand planetary consciousness by introducing mastery to the lines because they were engineers of magnetic energy. Because they were connected to the Emerald Order councils, they worked closely with the Elohai, Elohim councils. And they were the ones that were seeding the timelines. They were the first explorers and cosmic engineers. Now, we're not talking about just Earth, but what they did for Earth was to create the foundations of Earth's Stargate network. So their DNA coding would later carry into the Indigenous grid keepers and those races on Earth. Now, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we'll come back to that. The third root race was the Lemurians, or the Lemurians, however you want to say it, it's fine. These were the Earth Keepers. Their origins were from the 3D to the 5D Earth template. They were originally Syrian or Syrian-Borean lineages. They were pre-Atlantean Elohai Elohim. They were the caretakers of Earth, the stewards. They were extremely spiritual. They carried a lot of spiritual ecology in their DNA. They worked with harmonic frequencies, so they were masters of sound and light and energy. And they would integrate that into the biosphere, into the cosmic grids. And these were the first true human form. So they were the first civilization in physical form. Okay, so the races prior to that were not in the physicality that we know. The Lemurians were the first to take on physical form while still holding plasmic body structures. If you've ever seen Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets, I can't remember what the name of the people were. Drop it in the comments if you know, but the people that he was connected to one of the incarnates, one of the souls. They shared the same oversoul, and she chose him to have a walk-in experience with. That's what the Lemurians looked like. They looked like disco balls. Like they look like walking plasma. They were glowing. So all these interpretations that people may have of the Lemurians or the Lemurians, a lot of it is distorted. If they look human, it's distorted because that's not what the Lemurians looked like. Based on the fact of the codes that they held, that depended on how their structure was. Okay? They served as keepers of sacred planetary wisdom. They were the bridge keepers for the dimensions. They had the cosmic knowledge. They were the ones that were truly designed to evolve consciousness. And again, many of the Indigenous and First Nation lineages carried direct Lemurian coding before they became distorted and hybridized. And we're going to talk about that. You're going to see why all of this was done to each race. Now, the fourth root race was the Atlanteans. And the Atlanteans were known as the architects of power. Their dimensional origin was 3 to 6D Earth template. They were connected, the Atlanteans, the true Atlanteans, not after the distortion and the fall and all of that. The true Atlanteans were Pleiadian Syrian Lyran hybrids. This is organic hybridization, not Metatronic distorted Anunnaki hybridization. None of us are Anunnaki. Anunnaki in itself, okay? The word Anunnaki in itself means genetic distortion in its Origin, yes, it takes on many meanings. It means first to come, this, that, those from Anu, all that stuff. Yeah, right. It means genetic distortion. Those that fell. Naki. The Anu, Naki. The Naki means to fall. It is a distorted template. None of us are Anunnaki if you are from the original seedings. There are some Anunnaki here. Just because your family is all pieces of crap doesn't mean that you want to be one too. Okay? So I'm not separating you. But the Atlanteans, the original Atlanteans, were Pleiadian-Sirian Lyran hybrids. Natural hybrids, organic hybrids, not mutated. And contrary to a lot of, again, distorted AI infiltrated channeling and all that stuff, the Atlanteans did not start out being rebellious and crazy. They were advanced. They were advanced in scalar energy technology. They were master builders. They built the Stargate mechanics with crystal grids. They were using crystal technology. They carried the original imprints for Merkaba mechanics and DNA activation technology. So they were definitely advanced and they were not disruptive. That came way later. When they fell from grace, right? That's what led to the genetic hybridization with the AI distortions that came along later, and eventually what we're dealing with right now, the planetary destructions that's going on right now, all these Metatronic stuff is a result of the fall of Atlantis, the original Atlanteans. And their DNA was partially preserved in the modern Europeans in lineages. Okay? Not white people. White, that came along later, that word, that meaning, that came along through the distortion. People always like to say, oh, white people have no culture. That is the biggest bullshit I've ever heard in my life. There's a reason why I teach, or I used to teach, Celtic shamanism. The Celts were the original seed holders of the lineage, the galactic lineage, before it became distorted, because I don't teach Celtic distortion, okay? Then you have the Aryans. That was the fifth root race. And that's the current Earth experience right now. Everyone here, this is the biggest joke to me, because you'll have these white supremacy groups label themselves as Aryans because they don't realize and understand what Aryan lineage is all about, and even in its root sense. These were the post-Atlantean hybrid experiments. That's what we ultimately all became. But it was originally designed from the races that I spoke about. The Aryans were originally supposed to be the unification project. That's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to unify all of the other races. And it didn't turn out that way. Because of the genetic tampering, it went into control mechanisms and systematic divisions and DNA suppressions and all these fragmented aspects of our current human genome. It's a mixture of all of the previous races combined. That's what we're dealing with right now. Okay, so now I want to get into the evolution of those root races into the 5 primary racial lineages on Earth. And each of them, how they carry a specific strand of DNA encoding. Now, I know I said I was going to talk about the strands of DNA, but I felt like this part of the conversation needed to happen first before we examine each strand. I want you to see how the races play a role, how you yourself and your lineage plays a role in your DNA and your strands. Okay? Because we got the black race, we got the indigenous, we got the Asian, we got the European, and we have the I'm gonna say Middle Eastern because that's what we're using nowadays. That's not really what it is, but like the North African lineages. Okay. Now, when this is done, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be guiding you through a Krystic DNA restoration activation. It's going to follow directly after this transmission, because we are going to reconnect all the lineages. We are going to restore the DNA template, and we're going to realign with guardian frequencies. And every time you go to that Krystic DNA restoration activation, that's what's going to happen. So look out for that. Please give the video a thumbs up. And remember that this artwork is plasmic encoded. The fact that it's already existing in this time-space reality, it's already started. It's already started. You tuning in, you've already started. You've already engaged, right? So let's just take a breath for a moment. KAH-Rah Sha-Na-Teh-Ti. We now unify all races of Earth into the Krystic guardian host. Breathe. Now, let's talk about the black race. These were the fire keepers. Their galactic origin was the Polarians. That was the root race they were connected to, the Polarians. And through the Polarians, they came into form into the Lyran-Sirian Anunnaki Elohai. And yes, they connected through dimensions 1 and 2, but they also connected through DNA strands 1 through 3. So the black race governed physical, or still govern physical manifestation and planetary stability. That's what they were supposed to do before they got tampered with. Now you see why they were tampered with? Because if you don't have stabilizers for the grids, you can't anchor plasma fields. Earth grids are chaotic because the black lineage has been heavily infiltrated. The black lineage carried, now listen to what I'm saying, all of these races have the traces in them. But the black lineage carries the original 12D Elohai Lyran blue flame DNA sequencing. That means they hold high plasma conductivity, and it allows them to distribute and absorb and transmute and transmit high frequency light codes. And so what do you see a lot of the black races on this planet? What are they doing? They're in music, they're in all of these controlled structures, right? To distort the DNA. So first the target was genetic hybridization by the fallen Anunnaki. Black people, you are not Anunnaki. I don't care who is telling you that. They are a distortion. Anunnaki is a distortion. It's not organic Krystic DNA. It's been mutated. It's from fallen beings. That's where Anunnaki came from. Any Anunnaki that's about their shit will tell you that. They're not anything Krystic. They were the Anu part of it. And no, that didn't come from Enki and Enlil or King Anu. They were all Anunnakis. They were all distorted beings. They were all fallen beings. Anything Anunnaki, draconian, it's all distortion. So if you believe that you are an Anunnaki, it is because you have been genetically hybridized. And when you genetically hybridize yourself with these fallen races, what it does to you is it limits your plasma body activation. So that was the first thing that they came along and did. The Babylonians, they even went into the Kemites, all of them, they were all infiltrated. That's why so much of that teaching is infiltrated. So much of that original teaching has been distorted because of the Anunnaki. And again, Black people, you are not Anu, you are Lyran-Sirian, Anuhazi, Elohai. That is who you are. You are a lion. Okay? The next thing was the colonization, the slavery, the systematic oppression. And what did that do? It stopped you from being on your mission. How are you going to go and activate the grids when you can't afford to travel? When you can't, how are you going to go and seek out master teachers when you can't afford to pay them? You see? And the ones that you get for free, they're all a bunch of snake oil salesmen telling you a bunch of crazy shit. Placed in here by the Metatron systems. So you go on Sam's cart and go get your guru. Or you go to, one of these hijacked religions to tell you to pray to something outside of you. And it went far. It went into Atlantis, Kemet, or Egypt. And this is all to make sure you do not reclaim your Krystic planetary work as a role as grid workers. So I'm not saying that all races are not supposed to be grid workers. I'm telling you that as Black people, your coding is specifically designed for that. The grids naturally respond to you. But if you are distorted, if you're not healed, if you do not have active strands, then it's counterproductive. And you can tell yourself until you're blue in the face that you're the chosen one. There is no such thing. That is a distortion. That is a Metatronic programming, that whole chosen thing. That's nonsense. So you got to restore that. You've got to regain that level of awareness. Some parts of this that I'm saying to you right now, it may be a little harsh. It may be a little hard to hear, but there's parts of it that are resonating, right? So take a deep breath. Now exhale that. And we're going to tap into those parts that are resonating. And just close your eyes for a moment. Those of you who resonate with the Black lineage. And again, we're all mixed up here. So I'd recommend all of you closing your eyes. E-LAi-sah, SHAH-HAH-TOOM, KAH-Rah-TEE, Sah. So it is. Now let's go on to the indigenous tribes. These would be who we call the natives to the Americas. These would be what we call the Aboriginal. These were also grid keepers. Now, your original galactic origins came from Sirius B. And like I said before, pre-Atlantean Elohai Elohim. And your DNA strands are connected to 4 through 6. So you were deeply connected to the elemental and the elemental realms and the ley lines of the earth, which is why so much indigenous people are connected to the spirits of the earth, what we call the spirits of the earth, through the elemental forces, right? What we call the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, and all of those realms, there's a reason why you are innately connected to them, because you hold those DNA strands. That was the energetic balance and flow. That was your purpose before you became distorted, before you became targeted. And we're going to talk about your targets as well. Before that, you were the sacred grid keepers. You held communion with the vortices. I've spoken about this before. There's been a lot of places that I'd go to that used to be taken care of by indigenous people. And now it's overrun with new age, commercialized, woke capitalists, Nepo baby, snake oil salesman, who's got the biggest crystals, all sorts of stuff. You go to places like Hawaii, even Sedona. Oh man, those lines are so distorted. Those are the most corrupt lines I've seen in a long time. And it's because they're being tapped by Metatronic, death coding. You've got people doing reverse mechanics, Merkaba mechanics. Most people, they're over there worshiping all sorts of stuff. They don't know what the hell they're doing, putting all sorts of crazy stuff into the grids. And the people that were supposed to be taking care of the vortices, they're pushed out. You barely see an indigenous community. All the reservations are, they're not even on the proper lines. They have people in the so-called reservations on dead lines, dead land. You think that wasn't done on purpose? Even if the little minions, I'm talking about these elites, they're minions. Even if they don't really know what they're doing, it was purposely done to push these people off of the lands, because that's what their templates, their DNA is supposed to be doing that. They were telepathically, and still are, many of them, ones that haven't been infiltrated and that haven't been distorted. They're connected to the animals, to the elements, to the consciousness of the planet. There's a reason why that was strategically done, to ensure that we activate the 4 to 6 strand. We're struggling right now on the planet. Most people here are barely 3 strands, barely. Most people don't even know what the strands are, calling out 144, 24 strands. Get out of here. This is real stuff. So right away, now you see where all of the genocide, the forced displacement, because when you first of all, you genocide people that are connected to the lines, they're the grid keepers. This war that we're experiencing on Earth that's playing out in the galactics, it is a Stargate war and a grid war. He who controls the stargates and the grids controls the universe. And strategically, how do you do that with people that don't remember who they are? Because that first got stripped away and wiped away as the fall continued. So the indigenous experienced a mass genocide like no other race. That's not up for discussion. Then they were forced and displaced into different parts that were not organic to where they needed to be. And then after that happened, even if they're in certain still native places, they made sure they went in there and disrupted that with drugs and everything else. Like when I was in Hawaii, I saw so much royal people, true royalty. Not I went and took over some land and declared myself Lord. Royalty, true royalty. Royalty meaning coming from these genetic lines, coming from these root races. That's the royalty. That's what royal means. Royal has nothing to do with if you're a king or a queen or you have some name and title. It's your DNA. All of that was suppressed through drugs, through all of that stuff. And we're being honest with ourselves. Go into a lot of these communities, it's alcohol populated, drug. Yes, there are still some very strong rooted indigenous tribes and cultures. However, it is far less than what it used to be. And the reason why is because these are the grid keepers. You want to disrupt the grids, you got to disrupt the grid keepers. When I went to Hawaii, it was illegal for them to speak their native language when they took over Hawaii. Why do you think that is? Because they were scalar commands. They were speaking the original language, Anuhasi. They were speaking the language of light. There were codes in their language. So most of the language is gone. And it's not just in Hawaii. It's in the Polynesian area, all throughout. Any Pacific Islander or Aboriginal, you go to Australia, you go to New Zealand, a lot of why is it the same thing over and over again? It's illegal to speak your language. It's illegal to do all of these things that are native to you. Why? You think they're just trying to colonize you and make you assimilate to them? No, that's the end of it. That's maybe what they tell the minions. It's way more diabolical than that. It's to cut you off from you accessing your strands. So again, let's breathe. Tune into the breath. And we're going to restore with the command codes. Al-Hum-Bhra Sha-Na-Teh-Ti. We restore the sacred indigenous codes to their planetary grid. Asa. Now let's move into the Asian lineage. Because the Asians were the knowledge holders. Still are, but definitely not what they used to be. Their galactic origin is, surprise, surprise, Sirian. Sirius star system is a very big place. It's far bigger than we think. And they were Syrian Andromedan hybrids. They also held this hybrid connection to the original Tibetan and the original Vedic lineage, not the distorted stuff, not this outside of yourself worshiping deities and things outside of you. That's all distortion. It is. You are all that is. And not into some superiority or some supremacy. You are multidimensional. You don't need to seek anything outside of you. You are higher dimensional consciousness. And so these knowledge holders, they connected to the strands 7 through 9. So they connected to the higher octaves, the higher dimensional access points, the timelines, the Akashic records. All of that came through the Asian lineage. This is where the advanced mathematics, the sacred knowledge. What do we have? It's still here. The most ancient languages is comes from that region. Why do you think that is? Think that's just coincidence? Still governing mathematics, all that stuff. Even the Keylontic science. Originally, they were the holders of Keylontic science. They were the timekeepers. And they held true plasmic dragon codes, not these distorted lower dimensional lizards. So how do you attack? How do you target? How do you distort this lineage? Well, through the religion. These were all distortions of the original Mahabharata texts. Taoism, Hinduism. It's already distorted, that ism. Buddhism, it's all isms. Those isms, come on. You know that. Those of you that even know the culture, you know that a lot of these isms came along later. And that was to block the true Krystic mechanics. And then they had these caste systems. So you had the dynasties. Look at, what's his name? He was a real one that they, Genghis Khan. He was definitely dark soul seated here to create even more distortion, to make sure that even more of the codes got erased. The teachings got erased. And it doesn't stop there. You're talking about Mongolia. You're talking about all of these places. Anything related to that Asian region was all done purposely to wipe out that DNA template, to wipe out the connection of the 7 to 9 strands. Now, I know I'm talking about these different races, but again, we are all mixed up. My sister's father is Asian. She's Malaysian. So now you see how it all comes together. She's black, she's Asian, she's Scottish, she's, you know what I mean? Like all of that. So we have the capability of healing all of those lineages through us. So that's why I'm telling all of you, when you hear this, it's not just, oh, I'm just this. No, because if you go back through your genetic makeup, if you know about your lineage, even just as far back as, you know, who your great grands are, then you know you have those codes. And if you can heal them and restore them, these command codes that I'm giving you today, they're the starting point. They're going to allow you to activate and reawaken those connections to the lineage. So again, let's breathe. Sha-Ha-Rah, Kali-Na-Ti. Asa. We restore the sacred Asian codes to their Krystic wisdom. Now let's move on to the European lineages. We can say white, that's fine, but these are European lineages. And for those who have this ignorant, distorted view that Europeans don't have lineage or culture or connection to source, please get your head out of your butt. Stop buying in to this Metatronic programming of separation. The European white lineage, these were the frequency weavers, still are. Now, their origin were Pleiadian, Nordic, and Lyran hybrid. Now, you got to be mindful because there are Pleiadian Anunnaki. There are different types of Anunnakis that have hybridized, that have come in and genetically tampered with all of the races, but definitely the European race. But these in particular, the organic European lineages, these are the Scottish, Irish, English, the Norse, the Celts. They came from Pleiadian, Lyran hybridized, organic hybridization. Not distorted. That means that both templates were Krystic. The distortion or the hijacking would be coming from race lineages that are already distorted. That's when it's in jeopardy. But if two Krystic races come together, there's no mutation there. You're both Krystic. You see? And these were connected to 10th to 12 strands. They governed Merkaba mechanics. They were sound weavers, still are. You go some of the best sound healing. Some of my European lineages, you go in there and they are on those singing bowls. Realign all your chakras. But a lot of it, unfortunately, has been distorted. Why? Most European white lineage, they don't have a connection to their lineage. They're off somewhere worshiping Shiva, drinking cacao. They don't know anything. And I'm not talking about, again, there's distortion in all of these lineages. So I'm not talking about anything outside of you worshiping Odin and all that other nonsense. That came along later. I'm talking about the original Krystic Merkaba mechanic beings. These were cosmic communicators. They were sound holders. Some of the most, we call it angelic voices, the musicians, all of it came from them. Yes, for sure. So why would they be targeted? Right away, if you go back to any European lineage, their Druidic and Norse lineage, which again, the original Druids, not the ones that came distorted after and were doing blood sacrifices and all that craziness. The original Druidic and Norse connections were Krystic science. They were Krystic lineage. And what happened? The Vatican came and made all of them Catholics and Christians and all that other stuff. Took away all their stuff, said it was terrible, bad, whatever, and put in all that other stuff in there. And that's it. What do you know about as a European, what do you know about your true lineage? What do you know about your Druidic origins? What do you know about your Norse lineage? What do you know about your Celtic lineage? What do you know about it? Do you know as much as you know your yoga pose? Do you know as much as you know the different types of cacao and crystals and yeah, you were connected to the crystals as well, for sure. But do you know the runes? Do you know all of those things? Are you familiar with that? And I'm not trying to make you feel bad. You need to get back to that because that is where the original codings are. And again, not the distortions. Anything that is asking you to be external, to seek some external, to pray to some goddess or do all that stuff, that's not it. That's a distortion. That's a Metatronic distortion. But there is original Krystic science in your lineage. You need to uncover it. You were royal, Irish kings and queens, real royalty. Where do you think that royalty came from? You think because they just appointed themselves royals? No, they called themselves royals because they were coming from the Pleiadian Nordic, the Lyran. They knew they were royalty. Their lineage was royal and still is. It's just heavily distorted. We're all royal. Spoiler alert. But that's how this particular group was targeted. A lot of the royals that we see now, they're not real royals. They're all washed out, hybridized. Who's not an Anunnaki, this, that. We know all of that already. The true royals are nowhere in sight. Not on the throne. No, it hasn't been that way for a long time. There was no throne like that. It wasn't that. That came along way later when they try to, give them hierarchy and all that stuff. And after they went through and separated them, then they gave a couple of people power and this, that, and labeled you white and gave you a little bit of authority. After they stripped away your true power, they gave you crumbs and made you believe that you were in power. Do you see that? So now we restore that. Take a breath. Shaluha Ekashatina. We restore the sacred, the European lineage to their Krystic sound fields. Asa. Now let's talk about the Middle Eastern and Northern African lineages, the timekeepers. Now, this lineage was connected to the higher templates, the higher strands. So this would be 13 through 24 strands. This is emerald order, cosmic intelligence. And if you pay attention, you will know why it's very strong in this lineage, even to this day, because a lot of the teachings come directly from the Maharata. Of course, yes, a lot of it, just like every other thing on earth, it got into manipulation and Metatronic overlays and the tampering, and it distorted a great deal of the teachings, so much so that it's scrambled. A lot of it is outward seeking, worshiping, gurus and all sorts of other things, right? But the original lineage were connected to the Melchizedek and the Anuhazi, Elohim, Elohai, the priesthoods. These were the encodements for not only planetary timekeeping, but universal. And so anchoring this lineage here was definitely way beyond anything that we could imagine for the current seeding here. And it's still attainable, right? This is once you've embodied the 12 strands, and now you can move into higher cosmic intelligence. This lineage carried sacred mathematics as well, very similar to the Asian seeding. And even again to this day, if you look into the Middle Eastern cultures, there is a strong awareness of energy flow of that kundere. And so, of course, this was deeply connected to the divine feminine, Krystic priesthoods and priestesses. We didn't really call it that. There was no gender specifics in that way. There were both male and female for sure, but it wasn't in the way that it is now, where it's so capitalized. And so, of course, that would be how they would attack. This is how you would suppress the lineage. So you incorporate patriarchal priesthoods, right, to come in and take over where the women were the natural leaders. We'll get into that in another conversation. And this is, again, not about gender. We're not, women are better than men. This is not about that. We are talking about Krystic principles. There is still to this day, what is going on in the Middle East? War-based control for sacred lands. Why? To block planetary clock cycle corrections. Remember, these are the timekeepers. They don't remember. They've been so infiltrated from the organic Christos teachings, it's been obscured. And what does that do? It messes with the time. It's distorted. You don't know what's going on. These were the Anuhazi, Elohim, and Melchizedek, priest of Ur, direct descendants of the Emerald Order Krystic Melchizedek priests. These templates from this lineage hold advanced timekeeping technology, and it allowed them to track organic time cycles, because there are organic time cycles, but there's so much overlay and Metatronic distortion on this planet that the organic timelines are really, it's hard to tell. Many of these lineages came from the Atlantean seeding and then carried over into ancient Sumer, Egypt, and even Mesopotamia. And again, the purpose of them seeding here on Earth was to act as organic timekeepers, to preserve the planetary time cycles and precision for the mechanics. They were architects of the pyramids before they became distorted. They were meant to restore planetary alignment. But if you're constantly in war and, these crusades and the invasions, there was so much disruption going on. It disrupts the planetary clock cycle. And at the top of that, why are they warring? Because their religions have been hijacked. The Bible, hijacked to the point where everybody thinks Joshua is European. All of it is mixed up. It's all jumbled up, and that's the whole point of it. The Quran infiltrated. The Torah infiltrated. All through every single one of these books that I mentioned is talk of Anunnaki. Read the book. El-Elyon, he's an Anunnaki. The Bible, in the Old Testament and the New Testament, if you read that book, God is bipolar. It's not that God's bipolar. They're talking about two brothers. The God in the Old Testament is one brother and the God in the New Testament is the other. And sometimes, they trade off and King Anu's in there. Read it. Read it, understanding and knowing what's really going on here. And all of that was to remove the Krystic planetary records, the true origins of this planet. That's why there's so much war in the Middle East, why it's been going on for so long. That's what this is about. Make no mistake. Yes, it's trickled down to all the other stuff that's going on there, and I'm not shifting away from that. But there is more going on here than meets the eyes. It's not about these minions and these characters that we see roaming around on the planet right now. There are overlords, not our lords, but they are instigating a lot of what's happening here because it's a tactic. It serves a purpose, but no more. So take a breath. Sha-Ha-NAH-TEH-TEE. We restore the sacred Middle Eastern and North African codes to their Krystic time locks. Azah. This is only the beginning, beloveds. I trust that through all of this, you now have an understanding of your galactic origin. This is about us moving in action. This is about us taking charge and responsibility of the roles that we've played in the negative, and also how we are going to regain our individual sovereignty, and we are going to reclaim the true unity consciousness through Krystic alignment. So again, following this, I'm going to share with you a powerful Krystic DNA restoration activation where we will all reconnect through our lineages and restore the DNA templates and realign with the original planetary ascension mechanics. This is where we need to be. I know that I could be talking about so many other things. There's so much stuff going on in the world, but I feel so passionately about making these moves, about having these conversations, about this. This, to me, is how we are going to achieve ascension. We've got to unlock. We've got to get away from them. All of these negative things. The only way we're going to dismantle this is by getting to the truth. And the truth of the matter is we've all been targeted. And there's a reason why. Because we all hold keys. We all have codes to this ascension. That's what it meant by us coming together, unifying. When we unify all 5 races, we build the 12-strand template. Do you see? It's so important that we do this the right way. And it doesn't take away from all of the cruel and insane things that we've done to each other over these time periods. It doesn't take away from that. But if we continue to just focus on that, then they win. And yes, there is a them. These AIs, these fallen ones, all these negative beings that do not want us to first and foremost, remember all of this. Because I'm not just telling you this so it's something to gossip and talk about. Once you remember, no one can take that away from you. And again, these command codes are openings. They are commanding that anything that is locked in your memory bank be opened now by your will. And whether you say them, whether you listen to them, or you repeat them in the mind, it doesn't matter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the command codes in the description for each race. And you can go into the description, you can write it down, you can say it, you can say all of them. I would encourage you to say all of them. They will be in the Krystic DNA restoration activation that I am creating. They will be in there, but you can most definitely have them here as well. This is about us taking back our ascension. We could sit and kick and scream and talk about who is doing what to us. Pick one. There's so many groups that are fighting over control of Earth, and not just Earth and Earth's grids, but Earth population that is asleep, which is us. We're all asleep until we wake up, and it's each one teach one. So the things that I uncover, I'm for sure going to come and share it with you. It's up to you now to take this information that I'm giving you and to keep going even further. You don't stop here. All right. This is a 1 hour video. It's not doing anything for you enough. This is where you start the real work. You start digging. You start asking the questions. Because the purpose of all of this is to get you in alignment with your oversoul. KAH-Rah Sha, Eh-LIE-sah, Sha-Ha-Tum-BRAH. Unify all races of Earth into the Krystic guardian host. It is done, and so it shall always be. Thank you, beloved ones, for joining me. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. I know it's different. It's not your normal thing coming on here talking about conversations. We're having light language and those things, but welcome to the channel. It's multidimensional here. Hopefully it has given you everything that you needed. And I will continue to show up in this way, in my most authentic way. This is who I am. And as I continue to grow and expand and align with my Christos avatar, I trust that everything that I share with you is helpful to your own expansion, to your own access and connection and reconnection with your Christed consciousness. I love you all so very much.
May the eternal Christ flame radiate through you in harmonic balance, and may the highest Christic order of source aligned light embrace your path in divine right order. Hinasha, Kesha, Adonai, Shanti, Kristala, Hasha, Adora. And so